The time is now 6:30. Stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance as we begin this meeting. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Betsy Main? Here. Tom Sinkowitz? Here. Gary Stalapoint? Here. Don Cavella? Here. Jim Gorman? Linda Fedor? Here. Adrian Ferrari? Keith Shealy. Adrian did reach out to me and let me know he was not going to be able to make it as he is recovering from a medical procedure. Our first order of business is to review the minutes from our special meeting on June 29th. There are a couple of corrections. The first one is on page 1. You need to get the correct spelling for Colleen. Does anybody happen to know what that might be?
Okay, I can share that with you afterwards.
Okay. And the other correction that I know of is on page 3. Linda Stratus does not exist. That should be Lynn Discharges. So, is there any other corrections that need to be noted? Who had sent me an email about a typo? One should have been on or something like that. And I read through this and I did not see where that was. Okay.
The only thing I found, Dean, was when I asked the chief about the bonding for the building,
Okay.
I then asked Kevin about it, and he mentioned that the contractor was here, and the contractor answered it was a bid bond on the project.
Can you tell me what page that was on?
Oh, that's 3. It's about in the middle there.
Oh, okay.
I asked the chief about the bonding.
All right, I see it.
Yeah.
And the contractor said what?
He had no bid bond.
Would you like that spelling?
I'm sorry?
Would you like that spelling?
Yes, please.
L-U-G-A-U-S-K-A-S.
Did you get that?
Bear with me. L-U-G-A-U-S-K-A-S.
Okay. Are there any other corrections that need to be noted? If not, then I will entertain a motion that we accept the minutes with the mentioned corrections.
I'll make that motion. We did accept the corrections.
All right, we have a motion by Don to accept the minutes with the amended corrections for the June 29th, 2023 meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a second by Gary. Any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor of accepting the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Okay. Thank you, Tom. All right. The first order of new business is I would just like to briefly just talk about guidelines for emails and phone calls. We need to be diligent. When we respond to an email, respond to an individual, and we need to respond to the group. A suggestion was put out that we send the response through Kelly so that it goes through the proper channels, so that we don't have any undue confusion. The other thing I would suggest is, if you have a a comment that you want to go to the group, send it through Kelly, and she can disperse it through the group as a whole. Are there any other thoughts on this matter?
I think it is a good reminder to the board how we're all elected officials here, and that whatever we say, whether it's on social media or via email, is foilable by the public. And the public has a right to know if they want to. Again, FOIA.
You had mentioned prior to the meeting starting one of your personal policies regarding social media. I wonder if you'd be kind enough to share that.
Well, my thing is that I typically do not comment on like community residence page. If I were to ever make a statement, the biggest thing I would need to do firsthand is note that I'm doing it as a resident of the town and not making a statement on behalf of the Board of Finance or as an individual on the Board of Finance. I would put that in big capital letters personally if I ever did on social media. Or email.
Thank you. And I think that's a good practice for all of us to keep in mind. We are elected officials. What we say has an impact. What we write has an impact. How we respond to what we see online or by email needs to be done with pause and then proceed. And again, I think it would be advantageous for all of us if we want to send something to the group as a whole, we channel it through Kelly. I guess the only thing that I would add to that is that on a regular basis, I try to send reminders about our meetings and let people know that if they cannot make it, to let them know in advance. And I think that is okay. But again, responding to other information, I think we should probably funnel it through Kelly if we wanted to go to the group. Or do not hit reply all, just send a separate email. You can start an individual if you have some question. If you want to just contact somebody who is on the board. So, what's that? I did not, but thank you for pointing that out. You didn't even have in my notes. Before we continue, with Adrian's absence, I would like to extend voting privileges to Linda for the evening. Do you accept?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me that. And I did write it down.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Whenever
sir.
you turn your face that way, I can't hear you.
All right. I'm
Please use the
sorry.
mic.
Is that better?
Yep.
All right. Are there any other thoughts regarding a point made about emails?
What prompted this?
What's that?
What prompted you to bring that up tonight?
I had two phone calls regarding the fact that we've been a little bit less than cautious, just to be more careful. And I think for any board, I think it's a very good reminder that if you were having any type of communication with other board members, it's probably best to funnel through the chair or through the town, just making sure that we understand that whatever we said as a group is it should be available to the public. So it's just a good reminder to make sure that we do that on a go-forward basis. Because sometimes it's easy to hit that arrow, and you think you're hitting one arrow to reply, and you're hitting reply all. So just a word of, just a reminder. All right. Any other thoughts on this item? All right, moving on to the next item, which is discuss and act upon the proposed fund balance appropriation of $15,000 for the town hall phone upgrades as presented by the Board of Selectmen. At this time, I would like to welcome to the floor First Selectman Kevin Cunningham to give us a little bit more insight on that.
Thank you. I'm not sure what you have in your packet for information on this. We did speak about this as Board of Selectmen the other night. If you remember, during the budget process, we had to take another $100,000 for cuts. Of those $100,000, the police chief had said that he could, in the budget, do without that monies for their particular phone system until such time as needed. We have a contract now. It covers the highway department. It covers the phones for sewer, recreation, police and town hall. Unfortunately, the police don't have that now in their budget. So it was stated at that time, if we do are looking for the monies, that we could come back to the Board of Finance and ask for a request. So that's what we're doing right now. So I'm not sure what exactly you have there for documentation. So it is broken down. There is, we have still the WPCA in there. We still have the town side of it in there. We do not have what's needed for this year for the police. So that's why we're requesting from fund balance to cover that amount. And I wanted just a little bit more in case there's an issue with a hookup that could cause a concern. So that's why I was rounded up from the 13,572 to 15,000. Tonight, are there any questions you have or concerns?
On the approved budget, Kevin, the budget cut for that, would that be under their line items or the department?
It's not there right now. It would have been.
Okay, I don't
Yes.
remember.
In their original proposed budget, they did have the telephone upgrade listed, but that was one of the things that had to get cut in their budget at that time. So it was originally $12,500. I guess, I wonder if you could let us know why it's now $13,572?
We just
So
looked.
it was just the rounding.
Okay.
You could say the town portion is 12, and it's 12,572.
Any other questions?
I have one. I know, I heard that he might have lost a couple offices.
I cannot answer that. I'm not the chief, and I'm not going to be able to answer
Like I
that.
say, do an internal transfer that way.
Again,
Okay.
I know that you mentioned this on Monday night, but I think it would be helpful to explain that to our group. The bulk of what is going for this appropriation is going to the police department, and yet where it says on this, it says for town hall phone upgrades. I wonder if you could just expound for the viewers and
Yep.
the audience.
the explanation for need to upgrade our phone system, the particular phone system we've had for many years, no longer has a backup support system. So if it was to crash, we're not going to have a phone at all. So that's why last year Kyle was looking around to try to find some other replacement system, and Cisco was the group that we went to, and that's pretty much why we have this proposal in front of you. We had covered enough of all the other departments except for obviously the police when it came time for cuts. So that's the problem we have. If we do lose out on a system crash, we're not going to have any phones at all.
So my question again is, it's under here, it says for town hall phone upgrades.
Okay,
But yet the
yes.
police department is, I wonder if you could just explain.
Sure.
why it's worded that
The
way.
actual contracts would state that because it's police purchase for the town hall, but it covers all of the other areas. So that's why it's called town hall.
Thank you.
Now, had you said, Kevin, that when it came time to cut, that the chief had suggested this was one of the things that he could do without
Yes.
this? I mean,
And that's the same time we had the conversation of what do we do after the budget passes, what do we do then? And they said, well, actually there was a couple of members here that said it's possible to come back and request the monies from Board of Finance.
Any other questions for the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion that we approve this appropriation of $15,000 for the upgraded telephone upgrades. Do I have a motion? there any other questions or comments?
I mean, I think that it's obviously something that's going to happen. I mean, as Kevin said, we don't want our phone system going down. And I just think it was important that we went over the steps as how we got here, why it's coming from the fund balance, but we have to have it. We can't just, if it wasn't going to come from the fund balance, then we would have to find some other way, some other area would have to find.
Any other comments or questions?
I'll make that motion to accept it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Don to accept the proposal of $15,000 to be appropriated from the fund balance for the phone upgrades for the town hall. Do I have a second? Ted is seconding that motion. Any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion on the table, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that motion carries. Next on our agenda is to discuss and act upon proposed fund balance appropriation of $80,000 for state-required ambulance service as presented by the Board of Selectmen. Again, at this time, I'd like to ask the first selectman to expound on that for us, please.
Thank you. This is going to be a little bit more in depth because there's a lot to it. The town of Plainfield has been serviced by American Legion Ambulance for many years. You have representation here from the ambulance, so if you have questions for them as well, that's fine. We have been doing supportive services without paying for a service. I'll explain that. This group has been doing a lot of volunteer work. They've had volunteers for many years. It's very difficult to run something now in a volunteer process. You can't find people who want to do it. So it's come up to a point where technically they could go out of business because they don't have enough money to continue processing. And now that's a small synopsis of it. The bigger picture is this. Hypothetical, if they're not able to continue servicing the town of Plainfield, where do you go? You need a PSA license to be able to support. The only ones I know of around here are KB, and that's up in Killingly, and the other one is American down in Norwich. I don't know about you, but I want somebody in town with a 3-minute turnaround to be able to service my family members versus waiting for someone to come up from Norwich or KB coming in from Killingly. Even if they were to put a substation, guess what? We're responsible to pay for them. If in your package you have the email from Rich Cody that states Section 19A-181B for local emergency medical service plan, we're required to have a plan. Again, we go back to the issue of, do we have a plan? They've serviced us for many, many years without charging the town of Plainfield, and they can't do that anymore, so we have to have a plan. You have to have service. So with this, I think that it's important for people to know that, first of all, we have to thank them for all the years of service that they gave us, and for that. But now we have to come to the reality of what do we do. Other towns, I can show you some of the other towns that do it. Killingly does it. Wyndham does it. Other towns actually have it in their budget every year annually. I think Killingly is $150,000, which was a raise from last year. Last year was $110,000, so it's a $40,000 increase. You've got to keep up with paying for your management, paying all the bills. You have to keep up with EM services, and I'm sure that's not cheap. So we want to make sure that we're competitive with that as well, because they're going to go elsewhere. So they presented a budget. You should have a packet there with their budget. If I'm correct, we had a meeting the other day. We talked about how many calls you get annually.
2,400.
2,400.
2,400.
Yep. Not rivaling the police, thank goodness, but it's still something that we need to consider. What I'm asking is, we had some brief discussions on this before. Now that I know the magnitude of how bad this really is and what we really need to do, I'll make sure that in the following year's budget, we'll have it in there. There may be some help to offset that you're looking for a transport. Transport license allows them to make some monies. Is it Medicare that you're not making Medicaid. Medicaid. So a Medicaid is,
It was so,
$50. Yeah, so they're not making money off of this. They're actually losing money when they do Medicaid support. And they're not always getting the monies. Years ago, it was we had someone who would not be able to pay, and they just forgave it. Now they send it to collections, so they're getting some money, but not everything. So we need to be understanding that there's a statute that we have to follow, that we have a moral responsibility as well, to make sure that we have our residents safe. We do that with the police. I personally see no problem with doing this with our ambulance service as well. And comparative to other towns around us that are similar, 80,000 isn't bad. So I want to caution you on one thing, just so you understand. If you were to say, okay, this is something we really need to have for our town, and I think it's something we should vote for and move forward, 80,000 is, according to the charter, requires a town meeting. So then it will be up to the town residents to approve.
One of the things noted on this email is that we are subject to evaluation based on our ability to perform. And there's basically only three conclusions. We either meet performance standards, we exceeded performance standards, or we fall short of performance standards. And so I think being able to be in a position where we can either meet or exceed performance standards presents a better view of the town from outsiders, maybe potential businesses wanting to come in, potential residents. This is something that we cannot do without. 3 minutes is a lot happens in 3 minutes. And having been on the receiving end of this not too long ago, I understand the urgency of the urgency for promptness and timely response. So my opinion is we need to move forward with this and send it to the town meeting. I don't think these numbers are exorbitant. In looking at their budget, I don't think that there's I don't think you have a whole lot of wiggle room. So I am in favor of moving this forward to the town meeting. So I would entertain any other questions or comments that you might have at this time.
Yeah, I have a question. We just went through a budget situation. How are you going to explain to the people why that was not in the budget? What they're going to be saying is, why the hell did you wait till after the budget to come after us? You do this every year.
Okay.
That's what's going to happen.
And it's not that it's something we want to hide, or we discussed a little bit of this prior, but we were actually discussing it during the budget process at the end of it. So now we're at that point where we have to go forward.
That's how you're going to explain it.
That's it. I mean, basically, we were talking about it as the budget was about to pass. Do you want me to then say, okay, we got to hold off our budget, put another 80,000 in the last couple of days?
I'm not going to explain it. You are.
I just said that.
Right.
I mean, is that what we would like to do? Hold off the budget process because of one item? And I didn't know the magnitude of, the state statutes and things of that nature. Just got that information from the town. You saw the date on the town attorney's email. We've been asking about more of it. I got the wrong, it was the wrong statute that was given initially. It was 7-148, and I don't think we want to follow that because otherwise the town's liable for entertainment. So we can't have that statute. So it takes time to do the research and get the answers back.
I did have a question for the ambulance service. So is this the first time that the town has been approached to be able to assist financially, or has this situation kind of been in the making for a while, meaning it didn't just happen overnight? Like, I know volunteerism has been tough for many years, like that's new, and then especially with COVID really hurt volunteerism. So I was just curious, like, is it really just this year that this became to the point of having to approach the town, or had it been done before?
so what do you say, the town of Plainfield?
Yeah, the town,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah. So,
Excuse me, I wonder if you might introduce yourself,
sorry,
please?
yeah, sorry. So my name is Will Jeffs. I'm the Chief of Service for the American Legion Ambulance Fund. With me is Andrew Kelly. He's the president of the board for the American Legion Ambulance Fund. We're a nonprofit organization. I was actually hired just about a year and a half ago. So in my hiring process, I had gone through the numbers and set up a budget. So this was something that had recently come to light. So with COVID and everything, we had savings and everything started to dwindle. And once we were able to sit back and look at the numbers, we realized exactly how much trouble we were in. Mix that with the ambulances. You used to be able to get an ambulance for $120,000. It wasn't too big of a deal. You can't get an ambulance now for less than $350,000. So we're really behind the 8 ball now. So that's where that push really came from. So now we went to the town. You know, we're a proud organization. We've been volunteering or providing service without funding for our existence for a long time. We are the only ambulance service in Eastern Connecticut that services their people without funding from the town. We rely solely on billing. That's how we've been trying to survive, and unfortunately, with the volunteerism being down and cost of living being up, we've had to go to paid staff all the time, unfortunately. So that's really what it came down to. The big push now is minimum wage went up in June, and with that increase, all the other increases happened, so that hit us again. So now we're even more behind the 8 ball. So it gave that push even more to this year. So that's really what that came down to.
Yeah, that's very helpful. I appreciate you kind of doing a recap there, how it got to this point. And then, I mean, as Kevin said, I mean, going forward, we're definitely going to make sure that there's some time taken out of the budget season for us to specifically talk about the ambulance service, and maybe we could invite you out to one of the budget meetings to obviously speak for everything's changed drastically over the past year, and are we going to have to increase it even in the future?
Absolutely, that'd be wonderful. I'd be more than happy. We're an open book with you guys.
Yeah.
You know, we're more than happy to show you everything we have. You know, we're a nonprofit. Nobody here is getting rich. Just me, chief of service. You know, I'm not going to tell you my salary, but one of the biggest things that changed was Medicare. They decreased the cost that we could bill for in Medicare, but to supplement that, they increased the amount we could charge for in mileage. Works out well when we transport to Bacchus and Norwich or Gibble and Putnam, but 80% of our calls are transported to Plainfield. It's less than a mile. We lost a lot of money on that, so that was a big hit too. So that's where we lost a good amount of revenue. And there's just one of the minor changes they had is pretty good.
Just one thing to add, you applied for a transport license.
Yes.
How far back?
About a year ago, yeah, a year and a half ago, yeah.
That's another thing that's holding it up, because some of that money could help to offset, but in the future, but we don't know how long it's going to be before you can get an answer on it.
Correct. So we're a certified ambulance organization right now. We're trying to become a licensed ambulance. With that licensure, we'll hopefully be able to do transfers out of Plainfield back to the facilities or back home. And that'll help us a little bit, but the biggest thing is to help the town. Our residents that are in Plainfield that need to go back home or go to another facility or go back to a nursing facility, we'll be able to help with that. So it helps us help you.
What's the difference between what you are and the two things that you just said?
The licensure. It's the difference between a certification and a licensure.
And
It's just what the insurance
held
company.
up for a year?
Yeah. So it's a hearing. You have to prove to the state of Connecticut that it's necessary.
So they're just backlogged, you're just waiting?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And it costs money, money that we don't necessarily have at this minute, at this moment. So hopefully if the budget passes, and we'll have a little extra money to get this process, further, and have that hearing.
So that's what's holding it up, is
Yeah, for the most part. For the most part. Attorneys are expensive.
Yeah, hire an attorney for the whole process.
Because it's a hearing with the state of Connecticut. So KB Ambulance just went through that process for their license so they can do transfers out of the Gibble Hospital. So that's kind of where we're at.
If you remember, there was about a year and a half ago that the Bacchus Hospital, the building in the backside of it, they had to go through the same process, through the same group, to prove that there's a need for it and that there's no issue about taking any competition away from anybody else. So it was a Zoom meeting conference, and finally they were allowed to do some things in that building. But it's a long process. It's not going to be the save-all, though. It's just an offset for monies that will help them. So if they came to us next year and said, oh, we got our transport, we may only need $70,000 because we got our transport. That's an option, but we'll get to that point. Right for this year, though, just to continue on, there's 2 towns that you currently service.
Correct.
And we are one of those 2. We want to make sure that our residents are safe.
Where do most of your donations come from currently? Are they from individuals or businesses or?
So we do get donations from events that we work at. For instance, we work the Plainfield Youth Football. We get a donation from them. We do the Central Cycle Track. We get a donation from them. Recently, we've been doing the Thompson Speedway, looking at replacing them. We've done some remounts, which saves some money, but
It didn't work out that well.
But even now, to get an ambulance is difficult because of getting vehicles. So now that the prices have tripled, and even finding a cab and chassis is more difficult. So that's the process we're in now.
So are you maxed out on your ambulance usage? I mean, let's say you can only do so much.
Correct.
And then you have to have one ready.
Correct.
Is this certification going to allow you to do more? I mean, you know, you get the money, it's going to snowball into hopefully more money. You're saying Cycle and Thompson, but like with that certification, does that mean you could do something different?
So, yeah,
Are
so-
you limited to what you're doing?
Yeah, so with the certification, we're able to do 911 calls. That's what we do, yeah. With the licensure, we're able to do transfers or doctor's appointments if we so, you know, for able to, we're able to grow a little more. But we're certified to have 3 ambulances. That's what we're certified for. If we are able to fulfill that and we're able to grow more, we can petition the state to get more ambulances. But right now, we're certified to have 3.
If somebody calls from their home and they have problems transporting their loved one or somebody, with this license, we'll be able to do it with no problems.
Is that based on population?
It's based on need, yeah. It is up to the state of Connecticut to determine if there's a need or not. And it's our job to try to show that need to them.
Fire departments currently have a tax.
Correct.
Is there some way you guys could do that?
No, because we're not considered a necessity. Yeah. Fire and police are considered a necessity for the town to have. We're not. Believe it or not.
You said you're a nonprofit.
Yeah. They're a municipality. We're just a nonprofit agency.
I'd like to add one more thing, if you don't mind. Again, I think I spoke in the beginning portion of this, talking about what happens if. And the what happens if is losing a service that's within town is one issue. But even if there was a substation from one of the other companies, I can tell you right now that we have something within our, for transport for KB through NECOG to give us a discount. Well, they're negotiating their contract right now for the next 3-year cycle. Currently, it's $85 at a discount. They are now negotiating and they want double that. They want $170 for the first year, $185 for the second, and $200 for the third. So it's not getting any cheaper. As a matter of fact, it's a drastic increase. That's why I think this is the best bang for our buck, and it stays in town, so your time frame is also cut down for service.
Most of our employees and members live in town. You know, they're paying taxes for it also. So, like I said, we're not getting rich. We're not trying to by any stretch, but we want to make sure our guys are making a livable wage. The biggest thing that's killing us is all the towns around are increasing the wages of their EMTs. Norwich just increased their wages to their brand new starting EMTs are now making $23 an hour. When I came into Moosa last year, our starting EMT was making $16. So not only are we pretty far behind, we're going to lose all of our EMTs to other jobs. Putnam's paying theirs at $22 now. So we're a little behind the 8 ball there too, so we're trying to catch up there. So that's where a lot of that funding is going to go to. It's just trying to make sure they're able to live.
That we're staffed.
Yeah.
Do you reimburse the fire department when they show up?
No. You guys, the fire departments are separate. They do that tax base, so they're all taken care of through the town, and they're a completely separate entity as far as that goes. They get paid through the taxes, and they have their what they call an R1 license, their first responder license. So they're a separate entity than we are.
I don't have a problem with supporting this. My problem comes, I've already been hit a couple of times on why the hell do you guys wait until after the budget's passed, and you're gonna come up with something sure as heck. And here we are.
This started coming to light just a little while ago, and not knowing that the budget was ready or in process, Will and I sat down, talked, and it says, I think we have to go to the top, not knowing that the budget was in process. So this is where it's at. I apologize if we're late, but it just came to light to us as we were sitting down figuring it out. Do we close the doors or do we go ask for money? And it was just poor timing, unfortunately.
So when did you ask for it?
I'd say March, yeah, January, February, March, somewhere around there. Beginning of the year.
And not knowing the depth of how bad it was, I think you mentioned at a meeting, at a safety meeting with all the fire
Correct,
chiefs,
correct.
police chiefs.
Yeah.
In March, you knew you needed 80,000.
Yeah, well, that's what we're working on, yeah. That's what we're working on.
You kind of shocked a few people when you made that comment
Yeah,
on the way out the door.
It's a lot of money to ask for right off the bat, I understand that. But, I mean, that's,
Now, is that 80 grand gonna go toward the 175? The negative that you're in the red?
correct,
It's gonna
yeah.
help go towards
Yeah,
that?
correct. That's exactly it, yeah. And we're still working on things in-house to cut budgets, of course, we're still doing our part. We're not looking for this so we can keep frivolously spending money, but there's a lot of flexibility or a lot of fluidity in that budget as far as, the cost of supplies. They fluctuate, call volume, the more calls you do, and then payer mix, of course. Private insurance pays more than Medicare, Medicaid, and then you have your people that don't have insurance that don't pay. So there's just, the budget's so unknown, you don't know how much you're going to make every year. So we have to kind of ballpark it, really is what it comes down to. So I was going by an average on what we did the last few years, because that's all I could go by. So,
Kelly, historically, as far back as you can go, did we ever have a line item that went towards required ambulance service, or is this the first time?
First time.
So how did you come up with the number 80,000?
so what the initial was, the initial was 100,000. Because I was looking at the numbers to break it down and see what we got back on. Kevin mentioned we actually own two PSAs. We own Plainfield and we own Sterling, because we cover the town of Sterling. We do about 2,400 calls yearly combined. Around 350 of those calls are to Sterling, so it's about 20% of the calls. So 80,000 to Plainfield, 20,000 to Sterling should make up about that 100,000 that we're looking to acquire.
That's still going to leave you about 75,000 short. How do you anticipate moving forward with that type of deficit?
I put on a second crew during those busy times. So we do on average about 40 calls a month with that second crew. So that's 480 more calls a year. That's what I'm hoping to make up for. Things like that. So a lot of fluidity. Is it going to work? I'm not entirely sure. It's a lot of trial and error right now.
We're fortunate enough right now to have the staffing to do it. Some other departments don't, but we do.
And I do, like I said, we do the standbys, the speedway. We're making some money up there. We're doing the cycle track.
Now, does this deficit include, you already brought your employees up to line as far as their?
Yeah, we brought them up to 17. That's what that included. That includes, so with that deficit, it does include to bring them up to 18. So the money we're asking for is to bring them up to that. So that is included with that budget year. So with that budget, it does bring the employees up to that 18, which is what KBD started theirs at. That was before American even went to 23. So even next year, I'm not even sure, to be perfectly honest. That just happened last month. So, but they're pretty happy where they are. I think as long as we can keep them happy. But at 16, when they can go somewhere else, make it 22. It doesn't matter how happy you are. You know, that's kind of where we're at.
Are there any other questions, comments? Yes, sir.
Just a reminder that because the request is for $80,000, it falls under section 2.5 of the charter, so it would have to go to town meeting. The Board of Selectmen, when we meet next, will actually set that town meeting date, if you so approve.
All right. If there are no other questions or comments, then I will entertain a motion that we approve the request of $80,000 to be put forward to the town meeting on behalf of American Legion Ambulance.
I'll make that motion.
All right. Tom has made the motion that we approve $80,000 to be put to a town meeting to help support American Legion Ambulance. Do I have a second? We have a second by Ted. All right. If there are any other questions or comments? If not, we have a motion on the table to approve the request of $80,000 to be put to a town meeting, date to be set by the Selectman's office. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? That motion passes. Thank you. And thank you for coming out tonight. Thank you. Next item on our agenda is to discuss the town financial report. So I do have a question on page 1. Under revenues, other local, we're already 18,000 ahead after the first month. What do we attribute that to?
Connecticut Water.
I'm sorry?
Connecticut Water is doing a lot of construction right now on the roads, so if they just pave over, patch over, they will cut us a check, and then we'll use that money for later paving. So that's what that represents. I think it was 111,000 exactly.
And that was for the Blueberry Lane, Patty Lane up there. That was the 111 for that. They're about to finish off the next grouping, which is right around the town hall. You've seen that construction being done. We anticipate from that $175,000. They've already started the paperwork for that. There is a third request that they wanted to do, and they wanted to start that either the end of this month or beginning of September. And that is over off of Cemetery Road. You've got all those 4 roads there that they want to do. They hope that they can get it done before the winter hits, but they know that they may not be able to do that. And when that completes, sometime if it has to go into the spring, when that completes, they anticipate another $135,000 payment in lieu of. So we've already started the process, by the way. It was a great question. We've already started the process of, if we're getting the money now, it's going to be cheaper to do the paving or the roads that we planned for the spring of next year. Cheaper to do it now. So we've already started looking at that, and we'll be doing some of those roads.
You can see on the revenue statement, the only state revenue that I received so far is Town Aid Road. So that's the only payment we received yet from the state.
Are we doing the sidewalk at the Shippington?
Yes, sir. Yep. That is part of a project that was already approved, and we're just about to the point where I think they've already started pouring the concrete, about halfway down already.
Oh, yeah, it's quite bad.
Yeah. We were worried about the night of the fireworks. We didn't have enough cones out there to stop people from parking on it, but we were okay. We still have 2 other projects that you're all aware of. We have the Dow Road Bridge, which the state has going to put it out to bid. And so that hopefully will be a stockpile of materials in the fall, late fall, and then start it in the spring. The other one we're waiting for comments back, which is Lathrop Road, the sidewalks from the end off at Eastern Bank and go over to Big Y. For some reason, it's been months and we haven't got replies back from the state of Connecticut DOT for comments, but that one is also something else. But we, again, have already been approved for monies that they've going to take care of covering it, so we don't have to pay any more money into it.
Curious, how's the tax collection rate going? You have about 62 days there?
That represents the end of Well, it was in July, we received payment, but pertaining to June. That represents the end of the June fiscal year. So I haven't yet, you don't see it yet in here. I posted it after I ran this. So our collection, we received like 16 million in tax revenue.
On page 2, under the assessors, computer, I'm imagining that's like a first of the year expense.
And that will be consistent every single department. Usually what they do is get their supplies, get their computers upgraded right away. So that would be consistent all the way.
Using Vision. Anyone that uses Vision, they pay it right away. Yeah, mine's later on. Mine's August.
Now, are we supposed to hold off? Can you answer for the police department about the sick day incentive?
I would rather have you,
That is the beginning of the year. It's new contract, and you pay that July 1st.
Okay.
Yep, the first pay period in July, that's due, per union contract.
education as well.
Yeah.
Kevin, is there a line item either under building and grounds or highway that would pertain to mowing areas such as like cemetery?
No, that's regular maintenance. Remember at the end of the budget season, we had in the budget an additional person to be added to the maintenance. And unfortunately, we had to cut that person. However, I have been in conversation with Steve St. Germain and Jason Bounds and our new Paul Gedney, who's our new maintenance person. I don't know if you saw outside how he's been maintaining it. He's doing a great job. So I proposed something with them to continue on with the Cemetery Road Cemetery. The issue of the previous person who was maintaining it, they weren't happy with it, which is why Jason asked if he can get a contract through Stephen to do the mowing. I think what I'd like to do is at the last one, which is just before Labor Day, to have everybody meet over there and have Paul review how the other company is doing it right now, so that next year he can take it over. I'm confident that he would do a great job because you can see around town hall alone what he's done. You don't have to ask him anything. He just goes up and does it. Notice that tree that's out front? Before he was hired, the limbs were all the way touching the ground. Never said a word. He took care of that. He's been cleaning up the town hall area very well. So very confident what he does. Matter of fact, we met with the recreation department the other night, and they were saying praise to his work that he's been doing. So I think we'll be okay. But I want to meet with the other companies so that he can see what they're doing.
Under recreation, we're already almost $15,000 overspent on the summer camp.
Summer camp? You're waiting for money to come in?
Oh, that's a credit.
That's a
So
credit?
that's opposite. So yeah,
Oh, okay.
we received a grant, a portion, so that represents money sitting there. And as they pay the salaries down, you're going to see that diminish. Because he's had field trips and stuff, and they're not posted yet. So you're going to see that go away. So that's what that represents.
And I was curious, under rec also, vehicle expense, what?
That is for the senior, the gentleman that drives seniors around town. Yeah.
So it kind of a nebulous number because we don't know what.
Well, it's a small number because some people will give donations when they take those rides, and we'll try to offset that with some of the costs. Yeah. And it's just donations.
What's smaller?
Yeah, he takes the smaller car all the time.
We were just,
He can.
I was just asking you about which vehicle. Sometimes it's a larger one, sometimes it's a smaller one.
It's usually the small.
Yeah, we're waiting still for the federal government to, that 11 passenger van is being replaced, and it hurt everybody when the national contract with Ford was canceled. So they didn't build them for a year because of COVID. So now they're back in the process of building, and the federal government actually did a great job by coming up with the difference in the monies, because we bought it at a certain rate, but it almost doubled in cost. So that's why the federal government came up and said covering the rest. So that 11-passenger van won't be until probably spring, if we're lucky.
And how about the, do you know anything about the pool improvements, the locker room improvements? You know,
He worked on some of the contracts at the end of June, so they might be doing some.
Yeah, he's working with the contractor because he has to schedule time for them to come in to do it. And the contractors that they got, I believe, were told, we can't get it right away, we'll get to it. So, money's,
Some of the bathrooms, like
Yeah.
the toilets or something, like stupid down there. I don't think he was changing the lockers themselves yet. I don't think that was part of it.
I thought we approved that year before.
You did. But I don't know if he, there's parts of that he was trying to upgrade, but I don't know if the lockers themselves were part of the upgrade. I can look into it and let you know. But I don't remember. I don't remember seeing that.
if you'd like, I can ask him for a report, that way you can have a copy of what he's doing.
Under town general probate, we've almost exhausted our budget on that.
Yeah, probate, it's 1 year
One and
payment.
One
Yeah,
and
1
done?
year payment, yeah.
Okay.
And so you know, our pension payment for the first quarter for the town contribution was sent out this week, $250,000.
Health department's like 50/50 most of the year.
For what?
The health department of health. Is that-
Department of Health is paid twice a year, so
Oh,
one now,
okay,
one
that's-
January. Yeah.
Can you give us a most current update on the fund balance, restricted and unrestricted? I believe we're at like 20%.
Year's
Or
audit,
10.
last year's audit was 20% as of June 30th, 2022. So what I anticipate, if we used, we're still not done with our audit, that's, once it's done, we can finalize and stuff. I'm estimating maybe by the end of fiscal 2023, when the audit's completed, the end of unrestricted should be about 18%. Because we have estimated in this 2023 budget $1 million, to use $1 million for the fund balance. So I feel like the town's going to give back at least $500,000, if more, back to the fund balance. And that'll leave you guys with about 18% unrestricted from 20.
They should be able to start, almost ready to start the audit pretty soon.
Yeah.
September or
Yeah.
something.
Yes. I'm down a person right now since January, so yes, we're going to be starting in September.
What's that cost us?
The audit,
Yeah, 45?
Yeah.
38, maybe 38,000 for us and the school
38,000.
combined, but if there's anything additional they have to do, then they charge you more. But I think the contract was 38
I can't
and
remember,
change.
is this the last?
I think so,
Cycle,
yes.
yeah.
So
I think so.
come after the first day or
Yes,
after?
yes, I'll look at it and
It'll
let
be
you
up
guys
to you to
know.
figure.
Yes, yep. You can go back out to bid if you want.
See the percentage.
I did everything electronically for the past 3 years.
No, Kelly, when you were saying the $1 million that's going to be coming from the fund balance, does that include the annex? That was part of that?
Nope, it does not, and I included that with my calculation. Because what I included is 500,000 we're going to use for the annex, and I figure we're going to give back about 500,000, so, yeah.
Any other questions about the town financial statement? If not, I will entertain a motion that we accept this financial statement as presented. We have a motion by Linda to accept the town financial report as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Gary has seconded. Any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor of accepting the financial report as presented, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Moving on to the Board of Ed financial report. It does not look like we have a representative from that group here tonight.
Kevin, has there been any updates that the Board of Ed's communicated to the town side about the study as far as a timeline on that? No.
It looks like they're running like 12K on the budget. Is that 185? Is that what that is? Unaudited value as of July 31st to be returned to the town.
Oh, I didn't even know that, yeah. Yeah, if that's what it says,
12,185.
He said he's very close.
Yeah,
He's like,
12,185 and some change.
yes.
Kevin, you hear anything about bus drivers? It's all over TV, there's a problem with bus drivers. Have they reported any problems with the hiring process for that?
It's the, and Ted, it's the usual thing with bus drivers, like NECOG has been trying to get bus drivers, can't find them. It's very difficult at this time to find anybody to come in to do busing. But we haven't heard anything of negative at this point, so we're okay.
I would hope they would report that to us.
I haven't heard anything from the superintendent on that, though.
Probably not.
Realizing that we do not have a representative from the DOE here tonight, are there any other questions that possibly can be voiced or comments?
Maybe just if there's any update on the facility study, I think that would be helpful. Because I know that there can be holdups with that, delays, things like that. So just curious on the timeline. If they're going to stick with the original projection, it might take longer.
Tom, if you don't mind, what I will do is the questions you both asked today, I'll relay to the superintendent to get an answer, and I'll share that with Kelly and the chief spread out.
Yep.
No other questions or comments, then I will entertain a motion to accept this report as reviewed.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion to accept the report as viewed. Made by Tom, do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Gary. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor of accepting this report as reviewed, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay, at this time, I will open up the floor to anybody that wishes to address the board and ask questions about the things that we discussed tonight. If you would, just please state your name and if you're a resident of the town of Plainfield.
Matt Reagan, Winchester. Nice to see everybody. Just a few questions that I have for the two gentlemen from the American Legion Ambulance. Feels kind of funny what I'm here to ask you guys. So I'll direct it to the chair, and then I'll hopefully there's some quick answers. One, when is the fiscal year run for the program, for the ambulance? Two, what happens to any ready at the end of said fiscal year if there's no funds to become solvent, so to speak, if those are a write-off of sorts or whatever? And if there is any special requirements upon receiving tax dollars, basically, if the town is allocating these funds to them, whether there's any additional state requirements that go into effect as far as accounting, reporting, or anything else that would be changing in your current use. Those are my three questions.
Will?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, the question, what is our fiscal year? We don't collect any funds, so we don't technically have a fiscal year, so to speak. So if we were to get funding from the town, I assume our fiscal year would coincide with the town fiscal year. With that being said, if we had extra funding throughout the years, again, it's a fluctuating budget, so there's no way to be sure if it would, one year would be this much money, the next year we would lose money. So it'd be hard to tell if we'd make money or lose money one year into the next. But the town would always be able to see the budget at any request. If you guys wanted to see how the budget was going or to see where the funding was going, to see if they, maybe were the 80,000 was increasing. Now we have $1 million in the bank, so to speak. You guys could request that at any time. But this is a new process for us also, so I'm not entirely sure where we would go from there. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question. I think that answers my question. We technically don't have that budget yet. There's budget year yet because we don't have a budget as far as annual offices. You know what I mean? Because it's so fluid, it's hard to tell. Thank you. You're welcome.
Other questions? Anyone else?
Smith, Plainfield. I also have a couple of questions for you involving the ambulance, so I'll take the same approach Mr. Reed took. One of the issues I have is, so right now, it's kind of like a messed up system where the urgent care up here is working because...
Excuse me, we can barely hear you. So
if you live...
If you want to pull the mic farther out and be a little more
my
comfortable
favorite
there?
thing, the mic.
Thank you.
So, can you hear me now?
I'm not
I
sure.
don't even know if it's on. It's not.
It's not on. Is there a switch at the top?
Am I going to get paid for this, Kevin?
There we go.
So, right now, what appears to happen is if you're a resident in the town and you, let's say your ambulance service or whoever, if you get taken to the emergency care here in Plainfield, you can't transport the residents to Norwich or to Putnam. So if they need an ambulance transport, now there's a second ambulance. So, but your nonprofit bills for the service for the ride from in town to urgent care, correct? So this is where the issue is because now the patients are being double billed. So, and there's also an issue where if a resident doesn't want to go to urgent care, they want to go direct, like Norwich. Depending on who the ambulance provider is, sometimes they can't go all the way to Norwich. So I think this is not only a situation where I support a 3-minute response absolutely for the safety, but you want the residents to pay for 3 minutes of service to an urgent care and then turn around. I just received an $1,800 bill for an ambulance transport from Plainfield to Norwich that took 3 hours for a 3-minute response. So I would urge you, Mr. Cunningham, maybe you need to also be talking to the urgent care Baptist programs, Nate Kimball, because the ambulance providers in the hospital seem to they're not on the same page. And I think it's affecting everyone. It's affecting you guys, it's probably affecting their ambulance service, but it's also affecting the residents. So that would be my only opposition to this, is that I'm going to pay for 2 separate transports. And there should be some addressment for that for the residents.
Just to, if you don't mind, I can answer some of that. We have the transport service right now with a 50-50 split, so to speak, with actually 60-40. But we go down to using American out of Norwich for transport.
Right,
And
but
then we do KB to go up to Bacchus. And that's what we go through with NECOG for Bacchus, I'm sorry, for Dick Kimball. And Dick Kimball is that rate I was mentioning earlier, 85 this year, but it goes up double next year. There are some things I have control of and some things I don't. I'm not sure what...
I'm not saying you have control over it. I'm saying maybe start some communication, making all of the ambulance departments, maybe they're already aware. And maybe if the towns were also supporting some communication with the hospitals and the insurance companies, it might assist. Even a letter stating, hey, our residents are saying this is, you know, so I'm just saying some additional support would be a good thing for the residents there. Because if you're asking us to pay additional taxes for ambulance service, plus we're being private billed, plus we're going to then receive another bill, that's a lot of money. That's, you know, so that's my only comment. Thank you.
If I may, just so you know, I didn't get your name.
Naomi Smith.
Hi, Naomi. So our ambulance, so when Plainfield was constructed as a freestanding emergency room, they don't have the capability to admit patients to a floor because they don't have a floor. When you call 911 in the town, we have an obligation to transport to the closest facility. When you call 911, it constitutes an emergency, so we transport to the closest emergency center, which in most cases is the Plainfield ER. There's a few cases where we're able to bypass that ER, or even have to bypass that ER to go down to Norwich or Dick Kimball. And there are absolutely times where a patient could say, hey, I want to go to Norwich or I want to go to Dick Kimball. And depending on patient presentation and things like that, there are times where we're absolutely able to make that decision. I can't say that's all the time, and it really is case dependent, honestly. I understand that frustration, absolutely, especially with the 3-hour waiting for it. But these are two completely different situations, I'm going to call it. It's a 911 situation, and then we're talking about the difference between a certification and a license. As much as I'd love to be able to take you from Plainfield down to Bacchus, you know, that it would be able to combine into one bill. It's not, we're not at that stage yet, but I completely understand what you're saying. They have that second ambulance come in when, you know, but if we knew, if we were to say, hey, Naomi, you know, we're going to take you to Bacchus because we know you're going up to the floor to be admitted, but we have no way to know that, per se. You understand? So I understand your frustration. Unfortunately, we have a set of guidelines that we have to follow also. But for the most part, if the patient request says, you know, I don't want 2 ambulance rides today, can you take me to Norwich, or can we go right to Norwich? We'll check vitals, you know, we'll contact the doctor and try to make that appropriate decision.
From my standpoint, if I'm going to support $80,000, I would definitely like to see you have an upgrade your licensure so you can transport, because I'd rather keep our tax dollars in town.
Believe me, I'd love to make that happen. Believe me. It's in the works, and it's 100% in the works.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. If there are no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
All right. That is motion that we adjourn. Do I have a second? Gary will second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. You all.